Hi everyone, so last night we got the patch notes for Season 4 PTR that is going live on Tuesday. And in advance of that, I wanted to start preparing some planners, and I got some pretty exciting stuff to share with you. So I started with some rogue builds because there is actually some interesting new things that we can do with the rogue. They buffed various builds and different legendaries and even effects like Inner Sight and Preparation. And on top of this, there are basically two new archetypes of rogue builds that you can now make. One is the grenade rogue that is going to be quite exciting to try. So they basically buffed all of these existing like grenade legendaries basically. So we have them here where all of these aspects that, you know, spawn grenades, drop grenades, whatever, now give you an extra damage bonus to those grenades, and they can potentially become pretty powerful. If you sum it all up, grenades will be something like around 5 times as powerful as they are now, and you can have other, you know, buffs to those grenades from various sources, and possibly the new tempering affixes and these kind of things. So I imagine grenade rogue is going to be a thing. We have to wait and see how it exactly will play, but at least from, you know, what I know about, for example, playing a death trap rogue with exposure, these grenades can do quite some damage already. So I'm quite excited to see how those supercharged grenades will actually perform. So I made a planner for this, and this is this setup here based on Flurry. Flurry gets a new unique that currently we don't have in the planner, but that is like a new item that basically allows Flurry to also spawn grenades and gives your grenades a lucky hit chance. So those grenades can then proc other lucky hit effects, for example, more grenades from the exposure passive. And this is kind of the idea behind this build. So I'm gonna go in this, and we also have the Arrow Storms rogue. So Arrow Storms is also getting a kind of similar treatment where you can have multiple aspects that now buff Arrow Storms. You see this here, the old Vengeful aspect that gave you like this little crit buff here is going completely reworked and now also spawns Arrow Storms and buffs your Arrow Storms. And we have the original aspect as well here. And if you don't know much about this, basically you shoot at enemies and then you get this lucky hit effect and it kind of rains down arrows for a while. So this is what it does, and this could potentially deal a lot of damage. Individual arrow storms already are not really bad, and like this they're getting roughly like a ×2 damage bonus if you combine those two multipliers here, plus these like flat damage aspects across the board are getting buffs and actually start scaling with your weapons now. We don't know how much, but they have previewed this, and they, you know, if you have like a stronger weapon, now these aspects also deal more damage. So in general, they will be more powerful than before. So the idea that I had to make this work is a rapid fire Arrow Storms rogue. Rapid fire also is getting a new ring that makes rapid fire explode, like the arrows have like an explosion effect. We have to see what it looks like, if this is like the same damage, if it just adds some AoE or something. It sounds really cool, and I kind of like tried to make this some kind of combo between playing like a really high attack speed, high lucky hit build here with puncture, for example, and then rapid fire for some single target, and then still have enough lucky hit chance to actually trigger arrow storms on a boss, for example. So the idea is you have a bit of like a hybrid here between those procs and your own damage, but most importantly, most of the AoE damage is coming from arrow storms in this setup. So that's kind of the idea here. So let's go into the details of a few of these builds. I didn't really like fully min-max these setups yet. Like, for example, I don't have any like stats on these items. We don't know what stats will roll. We don't know exactly what you can do with the tempering, for example. And also the Paragon, I kind of like threw this together. There's certainly optimizations possible here, but it will give like a bit of an interesting starting point for people to try out on a PTR. That's certainly one of the first things I'm going to be trying. And if you want to follow along, then you have a bit of a baseline here. So for the grenade rogue, we have this setup here. This is the skill tree. I didn't make like leveling trees or something because you're gonna have a boosted level 100 character. I also didn't put in any uber uniques. We're just gonna have this new flurry ring that is gonna be on the PTR, so I have to find that. I'm not sure if you can get it somehow easily or something, but I guess it will drop from a certain boss. So you can probably just farm it from a certain boss on the PTR, worst case. But basically we have flurry, we get vulnerable everywhere. It's quite easy. We have a bit of mobility here with shadow step. And then we have Shadow Imbuement for a bit of extra AoE. So in general, the idea is that we use the like Season 3 combo that we have seen in many other builds. Night Stalker Glyph with the Shadow Imbuement cooldown reduction, and then Concealment, plus the Resistant Assailants aspect that reduces the Concealment cooldown, so that we can constantly use Shadow Imbuement all the time. And this also has other synergies for grenades. So in case you're not aware, all these grenade aspects have like different triggers. For example, here is one where when you go into stealth or break stealth, there's gonna be both conditions now in the future. You get these grenade drops around you. So basically you can like run to a pack, you press stealth, you drop grenades, you attack, you drop grenades again. And then you can also, with the stealth, reduce the cooldown of Shadow Imbuement. And with Shadow Imbuement, you can also do some fancy tricks. So we have the Night Stalker glyph here with the -4 seconds. And there is this Uncanny Treachery, the Lethal Dusk aspect here, this one, where when you evade through enemies that are Shadow Imbued, you go into stealth as well. And not only that, but this evade itself will also trigger grenades. So this is here, the surprise aspect. It says when you evade or shadow step, you drop grenades. So you evade through a target, you go into stealth, the evade will trigger grenades, the stealth will trigger grenades, you come out of stealth, you trigger grenades again, and then you can also do it as like a shadow step, and your shadow step is, for example, also like an agility skill. So the shadow step will also drop grenades, and the shadow step will then give you stealth again, and this will repeat this combo again with the stealth. So you're gonna drop grenades all the time is basically what I'm saying here. So it sounds kind of crazy. There's also an aspect where you have grenades from caltrops. So I just put the caltrops in there. I'm not really sure if that is gonna be really good. In general, caltrops are somewhat clunky, but they are also an agility skill. So they do the same combo again. You can, you know, like shadow imbue a target and or like daze a target here. So when the target is dazed, then you use an agility skill, and you have the same thing again, like you go into stealth when you hit them with the caltrops drops grenades, the stealth drops grenades, and so on. So it's going to be kind of crazy, and you're going to have grenades all over the place. So that's basically how this build works. And then we have Flurry. We're going to try to get Daze in there. So this is yeah, probably something you might have to use an aspect for if it's not on gear. But currently we'll have to see. But this is something that we have to try to get in there. Other than that, though, there is yeah, kind of interesting combinations we can do. And as I mentioned, because all of those grenades have lucky hit chance, you can then trigger exposure. And at least currently in the game, these exposure grenades are actually by far the strongest, at least like in terms of consistent DPS output, because they quite reliably just trigger when you hit enemies. And they also have like a higher number because they actually already scale with your weapon damage compared to all these aspects. We have to see what is the balance between them when the patch comes. But I expect exposure grenades are still going to be some of the most potent, and we'll see. But yeah, basically the idea is you try to evade through targets, you try to shadow imbue them, go into stealth all the time, reset your shadow imbuement all the time, so you have like nice AoE damage, and then these grenades kind of like just burst down, stun everything, kill the bosses, and that's basically how that setup's gonna work. So, and the rest of the Paragon, I kind of like just optimized around, you know, trying to get as much damage in there. For example, exploit weakness for the bosses is gonna be nice. Deadly Ambush, because we can make our grenades count as traps. We also have the caltrops, for example, to get these trap effects here, just extra boss damage, because I feel that is going to be the main weakness. And well, some other like kind of useful things here. So we have the No Witness, for example, he's taking ultimate skill damage. We have the Death Trap to pull enemies in. We have the Cheap Shot there for the extra crowd control damage, and so on. So that's kind of the setup here, and certainly something I'm very excited for. So if you want to try Grenade Rogue, then I think this is going to be, you know, plus minus how it's going to look like. And second, let's talk about the arrow storms a bit more in detail as well. So this is this setup here. So as I mentioned, we have a rapid fire. This is a combo point build as opposed to the other one. That is like an ultimate preparation build. This is like a typical combo point build, but we're not really picking up all of these typical synergies with, for example, Condemnation or Expectant Aspect and these kind of things, but instead we rely more on arrow storms. So we have a lot of attack speed here. You see here there's a rapid, there is I have Moonrise here, that is this really nice aspect now. We have the Vengeful aspect that is getting reworked to the arrow storms proc, and we have this arrow storms proc here on the bow. So this is like a very strange setup because I'm running basically a ranged build that really benefits from precision usually, but we actually go in close quarters combat. And we have arrow storms trying to, you know, make those powerful enough to just melt through all of the trash monsters. And I think together with the new ring that will make your rapid fire into exploding arrows, you're gonna have like a really decent combo between AoE clear and then single target. Because the idea is that even on single targets, I will have multiple arrow storms up at the same time, so it will kind of just melt away the boss by just stacking enough attack speed and enough lucky hit. So map puncture is a pretty strong lucky hit skill, especially when you have high attack speed. You get, really solid lucky hit from this on a single target. And then you have all these arrows from rapid fire that also produce a lot of lucky hit on a single target. So I think you will probably have quite consistently at least 3 arrow storms out of the maximum 5. And well, we'll see how strong they really are. But yeah, the skill tree looks like this here. So again, we are kind of like very trap based, as you can see. I just felt that the AoE damage is probably not really the problem, and I tried to go without Shadow Imbuement because I'm kind of banking on this new ring that they're introducing with the exploding arrows to just carry the AoE clear together with the arrow storms. So maybe we can just go without this, and instead we go for more boss damage yet again. I in general expect that boss damage is going to be more the name of the game for builds in the future. We're going to have these level 200 pinnacle bosses. We're going to have the pit bosses at high levels. I expect them to be very, very tanky, and kind of like the main bottleneck is going to be boss damage. So this is why I kind of like invested more into this stuff here with the traps, for example, so you can get synergies like the deadly ambush yet again here. And well, we also have similar stuff here. Exploit weakness is going to be very powerful for extra boss damage. And well, the rest is basically just kind of stacking glyphs here. So we have the chip glyph for physical damage, exploit for vulnerable, turf for close. This is going to be mostly a close range build, I guess, where, we can use close quarters combat. We use those 2 agility skills, or 3 agility skills actually, with the caltrops. But basically going to be shadow stepping around all the time into packs, and maybe gonna caltrops out of them or dash out of them again and then reposition for the rapid fire. But in the grand scheme of things, it's going to be like a more close range ranger build basically. So we have that, and well, some other like powerful glyphs here, control for example for the close quarters combat. So yeah, this build rocks insane attack speed. I think it's like a 120% bonus or something across the 2 different categories, and it's going to be extremely fast-paced build. If you add a bit of cooldown reduction to this, I think it's going to be really fun, and I'm really excited to see this one in action as well. So this is the 2 concepts that I made for the rogue that are like kind of completely new. Of course, there's a lot of other stuff in this patch as well that, buffs certain things. I talked about inner sight and preparation builds in general, like inner sight TB, old school build basically is coming back for sure. We already have most of these builds in existence though, and I don't think they're really gonna change on a massive scale, but who knows. With the new temporary affixes, for example, there might be some really big surprises in there. We have not actually seen the list of all the affixes that we can get, and we also have not seen, for example, the stats on some of these new unique items that could be interesting. And of course, there's always more stuff to discover. And with the way that Diablo 4 is developing now, in general, I think that builds will kind of like just, be way more creative, diverge way more from one another, and it's going to be a lot of more different combos that you can actually pursue. So I think it's going to be really cool. But in the grand scheme of things, if you're ever looking for any other builds or any other planners, I do have all of them on my Discord here. So in addition to the Maxwell guides, for example, where we have like, fully fleshed out progression guides and all that, I always keep my own planners here. And you see I have a lot of stuff for rogues. I also have some other builds that I played this season here, for example, that I made into planners. And I'm also going to be maintaining this list in the future, especially through the PTR. I'm going to be starting making planners, and you're going to find more stuff here if you're ever looking for it. So this is linked in the description, my Discord. You can find this channel. And well, for the PTR as well, as I mentioned, a lot of other builds, you can probably just take these planners that I already have from Season 3 and kind of follow along and then maybe tweak as you go, because most builds will probably plus minus still work the same anyway. So that's it for this video here. Hope you enjoyed this. I'm very excited for next week, so I'm gonna keep you guys covered with a lot of videos from the PTR. Hope you enjoyed this one here. Let me know if you have any other cool ideas for builds, not just for the rogues. I talked about the rogues a lot now, but I also made some other planners already. For example, for the druid, I want to do like some double core skill shapeshifter build. That's gonna be fun, and some other cool stuff with the new toys that we're gonna get. So hope you like this, and see you guys next time.